get started then. I think there's plenty of people online. I just want to welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is a part of Loyola Law School's COVID-19 Legal Lunch Bites and Pressing Topics series. I'm Grace Parrish, 2006 alum of the law school. I currently serve on the Alumni Board of Governors and work at the law school teaching and running our private externship program. So I'm honored to be able to moderate this discussion today. We started these webinars in May, and I believe we've had 14 sessions to date, all focusing on the impact that the pandemic has had in a variety of legal areas. Today's discussion is going to be no different. We will be focusing on the impacts the pandemic has had on legal education. So last spring, very early on, Loyola quickly and successfully, I believe, moved from in-person to online instruction. Online instruction has lasted through the summer, but we are now beginning the start of a new academic year in August and still dealing with the impact and uncertainties created by the pandemic. So who better to help us understand some of these challenges and lead our discussion today than our Dean, Michael Waterstone. So without further delay, because I know we have a short amount of time, it's my pleasure to introduce Dean Michael Waterstone, the 18th Dean of Loyola Law School and a Senior Vice President of Loyola Marymount University, for today's Legal Lunch Bites webinar on COVID-19 and legal education.
Thank you, Grace. I really appreciate you being a part of this. You are such an important member of not just our alumni community with your service on the Board of Governors, but also in our community. You do so much for our students in your position now. So really grateful to you doing this today. And I'm really grateful to everyone who's attending. I realize how busy folks are right now. So thank you for making time and space to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you. So today, throughout our talk, please feel free to put your questions in the chat box, and we will try and get to as many questions as possible. So I just want to start off asking you, when did you first realize that COVID-19 was going to significantly impact operations at Loyola?
Yeah, God, it was kind of a series of moments. It was the weekend before things got really pronounced and the city of LA started closing things down. I remember I was doing what I usually do on weekends, which is like running from kids game to kids game. You know, I think I had like 8 different kids games and I was coaching like 5 of them. And, you know, in between I was talking with various faculty members and some of our associate deans. And, you know, there was kind of this growing realization that, wow, the next couple of weeks are going to feel very different than the last couple of weeks did, and maybe even the next couple of months. And at the time, our students were on spring break, and we were facing the possibility of everyone returning from spring break on Monday. And there was kind of a growing chorus, and it was so interesting. It's all about kind of trusting yourself to listen to the right voices. I feel like there were a lot of people talking about, oh, this is a thing. And, you know, quite honestly, I felt like a lot of these people have more time and energy to read Twitter than I do. And, you know, is this a conspiracy theory? But something kind of stuck that, wow, maybe we really do need to think about some very significant moves. So I remember a couple conversations that weekend where we decided, okay, I think what we need to do is rapidly put a plan in place to say students should not physically return from spring break. What we're going to do is say Monday and Tuesday are a test to get our online capability ready. So we're going to postpone classes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through Friday. We're going to be prepared to teach virtually, not because we need to or the county's forcing us to, just as kind of a test of our readiness. And it was kind of spending the weekend putting that into place, making sure the university was comfortable with that, because at this point, in terms of the academic calendar, we were a week ahead of the university. So we decided to make the move to do that. I remember on Sunday, I was at my daughter's softball game with my computer, getting ready to send the email out to our community, basically saying we're not having classes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday through Friday are going to be virtual, before like a lot of institutions were doing that. So I was super nervous to hit send, close the computer, watch the rest of the game. And, you know, fortunately, equal parts being lucky and good, it was absolutely the right call to make. By Wednesday, the county had put things on lockdown. So it was, really important that we had taken those days to get ready. But that was, the beginning of what's been an extraordinarily interesting and turbulent period. Personally, I remember walking my kids to school that week and talking with a couple different parents and being like, wow, we wonder how long it is until the kids' school shut down. And when we got that notice, it was like, okay, this is now all very different than we expected.
Yeah. So I know we've continued through the summer to have online instruction, and then throughout the news, we have some schools saying online for the whole year. For us, what decisions, I think the students know, but what decisions have been made about the fall, and what is still kind of unknown for us?
Yeah, so in terms of fall, what we announced, about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, was that fall was going to be primarily, if not exclusively, virtual. We had really worked to create a hybrid option, particularly for our 1Ls, so they would have that opportunity. And we had put a lot of work into it, a lot of planning. It was complicated because as a value proposition, we really start from the place that if people, faculty, students don't feel safe coming back, we need to be able to keep a virtual option for everything. So what that meant was we were going to need to run some classes, some 1L classes, with the professor in a mask, teaching a room of students who would be masked, and only about a third of the class. You have other people coming in via Zoom, and we had run a bunch of tests and we're going to take a shot at it, but people couldn't hear each other great and interact all that well. We would have gone for it. There were kind of two factors that ultimately forced us to say, we want to go virtual for the fall. One was we still had and have not received to date the protocols from LA County and the permission from the state to reopen, right? Institutions of higher education still cannot be open at this point. So we had been waiting and waiting and waiting for those protocols, and without those, it's hard to really put concrete plans into effect. The other thing was just that the cases kept getting worse in LA County, and the numbers in LA County kept looking worse and worse. And, what we've really tried to do from the beginning is set some guiding principles on our decision-making, because you are in these times forced into a range of important decisions that you need to make very quickly. We've always said our guiding principle is to protect the health and safety of everyone in our community. And linking back to your earlier question, we are really proud that we were able to navigate that initial period without a positive COVID diagnosis when we were in physical proximity to each other. So we really want to first protect the health and safety of everyone in our community. Two, make sure that we are creating circumstances where students can still learn, teachers can still teach, whatever the modality. But three, and this is kind of a value statement on who we are, protecting vulnerabilities in our community. A global pandemic reveals every vulnerability that exists in every community, relationship, everything. And we knew, despite the fact that the pandemic is impacting all of us, it doesn't impact all of us equally. So we really wanted to make decisions that both recognize and protect the most vulnerable members of our community, and also are in the best interest of our entire community. So anyway, long answer to a short question, Grace.
So thinking about online instruction for the fall, some people are, we're not going to be able to please everybody, right? Has that affected enrollment?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and certainly we watch our enrollment incredibly closely all summer. Right now, our enrollment for both our JD class and our graduate classes look terrific. We are bringing in the full range of talented students to both programs that we would hope for. We've certainly doubled and tripled down on engagement, not just to our entering class, but also to our returning students. I and so many members of our team have been, engaged in sessions with new students and returning students all summer. So, there was that thought, oh my goodness, are people going to choose not to go to law school? You know, typically when the economy faces challenges, you see more people returning to graduate school in general and law school in specific. But we all know after the last recession, which was 2008, law school applications went down pretty precipitously, about 40 to 50% across the board. So there was certainly concern that people would not choose to come back to law school, particularly if the initial part of it didn't look like they expected, which is being on the beautiful campus and the picture behind me. And we really, thus far, enrollments look, you know, really better than we would have hoped and expected. We're, you know, just incredibly pleased with the entering class that we're bringing in and our returning students and what the mental approach and outlook that they're bringing to returning also.
Right. So that's great. I'm excited that, you know, enrollment is still up and we're not, you know, people aren't deciding not to go to law school at this time. Perhaps, you know, now is a good time to go to law school. Just want to remind everybody, if you have any specific questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we can also answer them as we go along. Now that we've heard about fall and we know that fall is online, and there's so much uncertainty as to how long this is going to last, what do we do about spring, or have there been any decisions made about the spring?
Yeah, you know, I'll quote the great legal philosopher Yogi Berra. It's hard to predict the future because it hasn't happened yet. Certainly, we've spent a lot of time and energy thinking about fall. In terms of spring, we just don't know. Again, we haven't even gotten the protocols from the County of Los Angeles. We are certainly, once we get the protocols and we have clearance to be able to reopen campus in any capacity, what we've talked about, and this would apply to both fall and spring, is finding ways to use our campus that builds community for our students. We know that people are craving community, you know, now and always. So we know that students want access to campus to be able to study, to be able to safely interact with each other, to have a place to go with stable Wi-Fi. So we're really working hard on our plans to be able to reopen campus and really prioritize the ability to use campus for those purposes. You know, another thing that we know is coming in the fall is the California Bar has now made clear that it's administering the bar remotely on October 5th and 6th. So we really want to, as we can, prioritize campus access for our graduates that are looking to take the bar on those days, because it will be a virtual exam. And so students be able to use our facilities to take the bar. Right now, that's a challenge because the guidance that we're getting from the bar is that they're only going to allow one student per room for the virtual bar exam, no matter how big the room is. So I, along with my other deans at California Deans of ABA schools, are engaging the bar in a conversation to hopefully move them from that so we could make more efficient use of our space for our graduates that want to come and take the bar exam on campus. But that's certainly a huge priority as well. In terms of spring, look, we all want to come back to campus, right? No one wants that more than I do. And boy, when we have that moment, when we come back, it's going to feel amazing. But the reality is there's just so much uncertainty right now. And, you know, we need to see how the numbers are looking in LA County. We need to see what the protocols for safely reopening look like. So there is a lot of uncertainty, and, you know, January is going to come faster than we expect, but certainly we want to reopen and to be able to have people on our campus doing what we always do. But what I do know is we have taken the summer, and I've been on several faculties of different law schools. And one thing that hopefully won't be strange to the participants who are listening to this and not feel foreign is how much our faculty love teaching. I do think that really distinguishes us from other law schools. And, you know, teaching transcends any particular modality. And yes, we are used to doing it in person, and in many ways, that's best. I think we're all craving that human connection right now. But our faculty care deeply about the student experience, and they've really dug in and leaned in this summer to be able to use a much broader set of tools to be able to teach students than we were in spring. Because spring, we all got thrown a massive curveball in the middle of the semester. Now we've had more time to plan. We are really utilizing both what we're doing, but also tapping into university resources to be able to work with a much better toolbox to be able to maximize the student experience. Without a doubt, in person has something unique and special that it's hard to conceive of ever being duplicated. But this does create some opportunities. So I taught a summer course on socio-legal impacts of COVID-19. And I don't know if any of my students are amongst the participants right now. It was a great course where we brought in a lot of guest speakers from politics, from business, from law, and we were able to bring in some amazing speakers that, quite frankly, would have been hard to book if I had to get them to take time out of their schedule and come to our campus. We had the CEO of Children's Hospital. We had, executives from movie studios. We had some of the top lawyers in the country talking about COVID litigation. So it does create some opportunities.
So I think you answered one of my questions. I was going to ask you how the move to virtual instruction has gone, which I think you've said it was challenging at first, but I think we're all getting the hang of it. But a question came through in line with that, is that what long-term changes in legal education do you think this will have? For example, do you think there will be many more online courses now that people are getting used to taking classes online?
Yeah, and to go to another sports metaphor, because I tend to be full of them, Wayne Gretzky, who was, one of the best hockey players, probably the best hockey player in the world, who started off in Canada, but then came down and played for the LA Kings. When he was interviewed and they asked him, what makes you different from everybody else? He always said, what I do is I don't look where the puck is. I try to go where the puck's going and try to be there. So certainly we always want to try to stay ahead of the curve. We had already made significant investments in changing not just what we teach, who we teach, but how we teach. So, for example, last year, our tax faculty created our first ever exclusively online degree, the tax LLM, which is online. And so we brought that expertise and experience to the prospect of virtual remote teaching. Similarly, our LLX platform, which is our executive education platform, which I would urge folks on the call to check out. I think it's llx.lls.edu. We've been running virtual classes out of that for some time now, and we brought that experience to this. I think there are going to be, I know there are going to be society-wide changes on the back end of COVID-19. And, Loyola Law School and the legal profession are very much a part of society and in service to it. So what it means for us, one of the conversations that we had been having since way before the pandemic was the creation of a JD, a version of the JD that was more of a blend of online and residential. So having a program where a significant part of the courses were taught in a virtual format, and maybe the residential piece looked a little different. You had people coming in, every other weekend, kind of looking a little bit more like an executive MBA program. And that's a heavy lift. There's a lot to that. It changes a lot about what we do. But, I don't think law is becoming any less relevant to the world. I think it's becoming more relevant. And I think it's incumbent on all of us in legal education to think about how we can do a better job delivering legal education to a broader range of talented people. And there are a lot of talented individuals in California, let alone the country, that may not be able to change their lives and come full-time for 3 years or even part-time, 4 nights a week. So we had already been looking at ways that we could pivot and innovate to create something like that. And, the reality right now is we are learning so much and investing so much in forms of virtual remote education that we'd be foolhardy not to leverage that in the future, and certainly we'll plan to do so. Doesn't mean we're going to become, an all online law school. Doesn't mean we're going to not do what we've always done, but I think we're going to build onto it and keep adding and innovating.
Yeah, I think online classes, I think they're probably going to be a little bit here to stay. And for me, it's been exciting kind of to learn different tools to teach online and things that we haven't talked about or have learned about traditionally, rather than just standing up or lecturing. I know there's always obviously a big question now that, in terms of going to law school and graduating with a job. Have you seen any impact, or do you have any thoughts on whether, our graduates, how they'll fare in the job market?
Yeah, that's a great question. And certainly so much of what I do is talk to you, our alumni. And, my first question right now is, tell me, how are things looking from your seat? Are you hiring? Are you not hiring? And my sense is that, look, different segments of the profession are kind of internalizing this differently. I think the plaintiff's bar is experiencing it differently from in-house counsel, is experiencing differently from defense lawyers. Some lawyers I talk to in certain spaces, business is better than it's ever been. Others are struggling more. I think what we're seeing kind of across the board is caution, is the legal profession not being exactly sure what the future is looking like, so wanting to be cautious in hiring. We know and have already thought of that we learned a lot from the recession of 2008, right, in terms of how to support and help our grads through their job search. And we're going to need to now, use all of those lessons and then more. We know, one really hard thing is for our most recent grads who are studying for the bar right now, because there's been so much uncertainty around the bar. And I've been public about, not agreeing with the bar's approach on many things and trying to work with my colleague deans to advocate for certain solutions. But it's been a journey. The bar has announced that there is now a virtual bar exam on October 5th and 6th, that they will be creating a provisional licensing option for those who choose and or do not pass the bar. But it's been a journey to get there. And our grads have been, and all grads of all law schools have been laboring under a ton of uncertainty and having the normal flow of studying for the bar, then looking for a job disrupted. So, we will be looking to support them however we can. I think that my ask of the alumni on the call today is, one, to the extent you are hiring and are in a position to hire, please do as we've always done, and let's look out for our own. Please consider hiring Loyola. You can always reach out to me directly. Our career development office will run a concierge level operation to get you the most talented people that we can. That's one. Two, it's going to be more important than ever to build up the networks of our students and recent graduates. And those networks are made up of our alumni. So even if you're not sitting on a job, do a virtual coffee date with them, get together once it's safe to do so. We know from our research that for a lot of our grads, it's building that network. It's going to bar association events, getting themselves out there, that ultimately leads to them getting that first job, which becomes so important. One other small note, on-campus interviews have been pushed back to January. That's across the board at area law schools. And I think that was something that made sense both for the law firms and the law schools.
Well, you stole my next question, which was going to be, what as alums can we do to help? So I think you touched on that in terms of, jobs and just interviews and things like that. So is there anything else that, alums can do to help?
Yes, I'm not done asking alumni for things. First of all, I would not be doing a good job as your dean if I did not, in any opportunity, one, thank those of you on this call or this Zoom session that have contributed to Loyola Law School. Certainly that support is needed more now than ever. We have a number of initiatives, but things that need your support. Scholarships. Scholarships for our students are more important now than they've ever been. One of the decisions that we made in the spring was not to remove anyone's scholarship based on academic performance. We stand by that. It was the right decision, but that had a price tag. Similarly, we know, given the level of financial need out there, that we need to provide more scholarships to our students than we ever had. So we're trying to raise $1 million in new scholarship money by the end of this calendar year. And with the support, many of you on this call, we're already a quarter of the way there, and we're going to keep going. So, scholarships are more important than ever. The work of our clinics, which depends in so many ways on the support of you, our alumni and friends. We talked before about a pandemic revealing every vulnerability that exists in our society. There is a crushing access to justice gap, and our clinic serves that both by having our students work directly on those cases under the supervision of our faculty, but also go out and becoming change multipliers in the world once they learn how to do this. These clinics, their work, they are, even during COVID, representing, immigrants facing the most challenging moments of their life, juveniles who would otherwise be alone in court, the work of the Project for the Innocent, getting people who did not commit crimes out of jail when they've served decades. That work depends on your support, and it's needed more now than it ever has. So please consider supporting that as well, or so many of our other initiatives that are so important to our work. So we could use your support, and we are grateful for it. The other thing, and this you'll be hearing more from me on in the next month as things become more clear. As I said, the bar has said that they are doing a virtual exam on October 5th and 6th. As we are able to safely do, we will prioritize being able to use our campus for test takers to come use it. But we may also be asking our alumni, those of you that have offices that could create space for test takers on those days, to be able to do it. And we can work with you on the protocols for that. But we are going to really be doing all we can to find secure and safe locations for our grads to take the bar exam.
I had a question come through that says, has Loyola discussed the possibility for 1Ls to come on a campus on different days to take pictures, get a LLS gear, kind of have some sort of experience instead of just sitting in front of the computer, I guess, starting first day?
Yeah, and we don't even want it to be that. We want to be able to do more, to have, virtual socially distanced gatherings, to be able to do small reading groups on things, to be able to use the facility. So that and all more. Yes, and we want to put together plans to be able to allow that to happen. We've really been handcuffed by, we've not gotten the protocols from the county that we need to be able to move forward, and we've not gotten authorization from the state to be able to implement those protocols once they're done. So we are certainly putting together plans for as much as possible, but one of the more frustrating things is just how much is out of our hands at this point.
You touched a little bit kind of on the clinics. I think somebody said Loyola is helping close the crushing access to justice gap. There's so much going on right now in the world, and conversations about racial injustice. Has anything been happening at Loyola, and how is that interacting with the response to the global pandemic?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Grace. It's an important one, and there has been quite a bit going on, and I'm really happy for the opportunity to be able to share this. These are hugely important conversations around racial justice right now. I will say, and I think it's important, I always approach these conversations with humility, particularly as not just a white male dean of Loyola Law School, but the 18th white male dean of Loyola Law School. This is crucial that we play a role in achieving not just a more just world, but a more just Loyola right now. One of the things we did this summer, and this was something that we had been planning to do well before kind of the current set of conversations, is appoint an inaugural dean, associate dean of equity and inclusion. That position will be held by my colleague, Kathleen Kim. Many of you know Kathleen. She is a leading voice on immigration and human trafficking. She has served in public service in a number of capacities. She brings, thoughtfulness and wisdom and energy and passion to this role. Part of the idea behind it was we really wanted we all care about diversity, inclusion, equity issues, right? We all need to care about those. You can't delegate them or offshore them to any one individuals or set of individuals. But the reality of decision making, at Loyola and really anywhere is it was really important that we always had a voice at the table, that their exclusive lane was paying attention to that issue. And I wanted someone with that portfolio present at the table of every important decision that we make as an institution. And Kathleen has already been wonderful in that, and will be an important voice as we try to do things better, and become a more authentically anti-racist institution. I will say I am so grateful for and proud of all of our students, but in particular the leadership of our BALSA students, our Black Law Students Association. We've been in dialogue with them all summer. They took the lead on organizing a march for all Los Angeles area law students. And it was our students that were out in front leading this. It started from Loyola Law School and marched from the law school to City Hall. It was so incredibly moving to see our students play a leadership role in that, and just how much I learned from that approach and the conversations that happened then and in other places. We, as an institution, are committing ourselves to not just certain conversations, but certain benchmarks. And recently had a faculty meeting where we heard from our BALSA students and others about the experience of being a minority student at Loyola Law School and what their journey has been like. And that was just a phenomenal and very memorable faculty meeting. So I do think, one of my fears about this pandemic is that we will emerge from this, we had economic, social, race inequality before we entered, and it's hard to envision us coming out of this a more equal place as opposed to a less equal one, a less just place. And our job is to, teach those in our community to model the type of citizenry that we need to fix all of these challenges in our society moving forward.
I agree. In lines, not necessarily with the racial injustice, there was issues relating, obviously, with the administration and international students. Have we had any, in terms of enrollment or things like that, issues with our international students and not being able to come here, or what type of?
Yeah, that was a little bit of an interesting exercise when we got the initial guidance from ICE, saying that if international students were participating in programs that were online, they were going to basically, revoke their visas. And that created a lot of panic, not just amongst our students, but amongst, students in universities nationwide. We came up pretty quickly. We put together plans to be able to support those students and, offer some version of in-class classes, even if we were primarily moving in the virtual direction. Fortunately, ICE rescinded that policy, which, I think was ill-conceived to begin with. There was, they've also cracked down on visas from foreign students. As many of you know, we do have important programs for international students. We were nimble in being able to create adaptations for those programs, allowing those students to participate virtually, such that at the moment, enrollments in those programs look quite strong, and we're not impacted as much by these recent administrative decisions. But man, this is one of those areas where it's like whack-a-mole. You think you solve one problem and another one pops up. But I think we take the philosophical approach that our international students are our students, and they are our students like all of our other students. So it's it's one of those areas you never know what's gonna show up in your inbox.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. I wanted to open it up if anybody has any specific questions. Obviously, Dean Waterstone is here to answer as much as he can. I'm not sure if I have any more questions.
And, while folks are, trying to type their questions in, let me just, I know that we have, in addition to some members of our internal community, students, faculty, staff, we have a number of alumni on today, probably predominantly alumni. And let me just say thank you. You do so much for our school. We've had such great attendance at these seminars over the summer. I think it is so important as alumni that you feel connected to the law school. So many of you have written either me, members of our team, our faculty, either in support of the various decisions that we've made, and we are incredibly grateful for that, or with questions and, wanting to know more or ideas. And that's fine too. We welcome that kind of feedback and interaction. So I guess, I would just say thank you particularly to the alumni for all that you do to make our community such a strong one.
I will say personally, I think that our Loyola administrators has done a great job in transitioning because, being on other email list servers and figuring out other schools, they're talking about how they're behind and things like that. I would say we really worked really quickly and, everybody got on board. So just personal perspective is I think we did a good job in transitioning.
We've got a great team. I see one question, will Loyola create a social justice clinic? Yes, in fact, we already have. Please go check it out online. We have a Loyola Social Justice Law Clinic. It brings together all of our live client clinics, the various ways that our students are representing real clients in real cases under the supervision of our faculty members. It is a signature program for those of you that have not been back on campus recently. We renovated Founders Hall to create an actual physical space for the clinic. And, it is extraordinary the work that we're doing. It is a signal of our commitment and ambition for the clinic. Last year, we hired our first ever executive director of the clinic. We hired Elizabeth Bluestein, who was previously at public counsel, and just her and her entire team and all of the students are doing amazing work. And one of the things that, when you think about doing clinical work while you're in law school, it doesn't just change the lawyer that you become, it changes you as a person, because there's no better way to see the relationship between law and power and that access to justice gap that we were talking about. It's really extraordinarily meaningful work to get to do as a student.
I was just reminded that we are celebrating our centennial this year. So not only has it been a memorable year in other aspects, we have a big milestone this year.
Yes, let me say a word about that. So we are 100 years old this year. It is our centennial year. It's on all of our branding. We pivoted our centennial celebrations, like most else, to a virtual format. But I, with my vast powers as dean, made the decision that we're going to continue our centennial year into as much of 2021 as we need to properly do it justice, because there are some things that we want to be able to do together physically. So we're going to keep rolling through on our centennial celebration. Part of what we had planned was banners around downtown Los Angeles and really ways to visually and physically celebrate our centennial. We had a centennial gala planned, which we've pushed off to next year. I mean, it makes sense because the first class of Loyola Law School of 8 individuals, including one woman, Ann O'Keefe, actually started on September 8th, was the first class, I think at like 7:10 p.m. So, we're actually we're kind of rolling into our centennial year, but a lot of it, we can kind of have a reboot on September when it actually calendar-wise started.
I think one last question, and I think, are you doing anything to encourage students to register to vote?
Yes. I mean, one of the things that we did, it's certainly part of the conversations that we have. One thing that we did in the last election, which was pretty unique, we actually canceled classes for election day and set up and encouraged all of our students to serve as polling place volunteers. And we had great participation. Our local polling place here, one of them in Santa Monica, I live in Santa Monica, I brought my kids, we brought donuts. Loyola had taken over the polling place. I mean, we were the only volunteers and everybody was wearing their Loyola t-shirts. And since then, other schools have started doing that. But yeah, we always encourage participation in the political process for our students. And, being a polling place worker is one of the only ways that anyone can be basically a government official for a day and learn about all that goes into that.
Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed being a part of this conversation. I think it's been very insightful, and I'm sure for the attendees it has as well. So thank you so much for everybody for attending as well.
Yeah, and let me, Grace, again, just thank you for being a part of this. I really appreciate it. You do so much for our community, so it's great to be able to have this conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you. Also, just if you're still on, please sign up to be mentors for our new students. So emails will be going out in a couple weeks about the mentor program.
Thank you all.